Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Caregiver and Spoonie podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Banderas. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of the podcast. And also thank you for all your support, all your emails, all your feedback, all your comments, all your shares. Thank you for that. Thanks to you, the podcast is actually growing, which is something that I really appreciate. It's growing organically, so we're gaining new supporters organically. So thanks to you, this is happening because we want to create a community that can support each other. Now let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Now, on today's episode, I have this question here for you guys. Should we be as strong as a lobster? Now, a lot of you might say, like, I'm already strong as a lobster. I'm a human. Well, let me go ahead and explain to you why I'm asking this question, okay? Now, I found this particular essay or this particular information from this doctor he's a rabbi, Dr. Abraham Twersky, and he says, the lobster's a soft, mushy animal that lives inside a rigid shell. That rigid shell does not expand. Well, how can the lobster grow? Well, as the lobster grows, that shell becomes very confining, and the lobster feels itself under pressure and uncomfortable. It goes under a rock formation to protect itself from a predatory fish, casts off the shell, and produces a new one, which can be extremely painful. Well, eventually that shell becomes very uncomfortable as it grows back under the rocks. The lobster repeats this numerous times. The stimulus for the lobster to be able to grow is that it feels uncomfortable. Now, if lobsters had doctors, they will never grow because as soon as the lobster feels uncomfortable, they will never grow because sorry, I repeat myself, sorry about that. So now, if lobsters had doctors, they will never grow because as soon as the lobster feels uncomfortable, goes to the doctor, gets a Valium, gets a Percocet, feels fine, never casts off his shell. I think that we have to realize that times of stress are also times that are signals for growth. And if we use adversity properly, we can grow through adversity. Now, I do want to point one thing real quick here is that if you need your medications, if you're in pain and if you have anxiety or depression and you need your medication because it helps you, keep taking it. The way that I take this from my perspective, like what this doctor says, that if you're taking your medication and it's not working, sometimes that's when you will have to go under the rocks and cast off your shell to see exactly what's causing the problem. Because if the medication is not working, then it could be something deeper, something that you might have to deal with it at a personal level, something that's causing the depression. That could be something from your past, the anxiety. You might be overthinking, you might be doing a lot of things that might be causing the anxiety. So that's the way that I see it. That's why I wanted to talk about this, because sometimes we have to go under the rocks and figure out why is making us uncomfortable, what's causing the disease. Like I have talked in other episodes where sometimes what we eat can make us sick. And I'm actually researching a doctor. She has a book called The Walls Protocol, where she actually has multiple sclerosis. And because she decided to literally go under the rocks and figure out what exactly was causing the problem for her MS, she figured out that she had to go through the molecular level on her body. Like she actually had to change everything she ate. She is in a very strict diet, which she calls the paleo diet. Or I mean, it's called the paleo diet, but in this situation, she made it on for herself, like exactly what she needs. So she had to go through all that stress to figure out exactly what was causing the problem. In this case, the lobster goes through something like this. Now, let me ask you this: as a Spoonie, do you feel like you're a lobster at this point after telling you this story? A lot of Spoonies might actually feel that way, that you might feel a lot of pain, from your illness or whatever's going through your life, but we don't know exactly what's causing it. We just agree to be uncomfortable. We don't get under the rock to literally cast off our shell, or think about what's causing the problem, if we're causing it ourselves, if we're doing something, or something in the environment, something that we eat, something that the medicine that we're taking might be causing a bigger issue, like that. This is why I like this story, because it's so relatable. It's relatable to pretty much all of the Spoonies. That way you can, in a way that you can actually say, like, you know what, I might have to cast off this shell. I might have to cast off the shell of guilt. I might have to cast off the shell of feeling ashamed for being a Spoonie. So sometimes you have to cast off all these shells until you can actually figure out what's going on, figure out what's happening. And another thing about this is that, unlike the lobster, you can have a team. You can have a team, and this is something that I have talked in a previous episode about having a good support team, because if you have a good support team, then they can act like your rocks, protecting you until you can actually figure out what's going on. Like, they can help you talk into the doctor, they can help you get your medicines on check, they can help you do some more research. So you can have a team, you can have all this information at your hands because of the internet. So unlike the lobster, we're actually in a better situation now, and that way we can actually figure out how many shells we need to cast off as we're growing in this situation. Because through your illness, you're gonna grow. You're supposed to grow as a person. You're supposed to grow with the illness together. Like, your illness, unfortunately, in this case, kind of like what the lobster does, the being uncomfortable is part of life. In this case, once you have your illness diagnosed, let's just say that's just gonna be your part of life. Now, you have the option to get under the rocks, figure out what's causing the problem. If it's something that you need to change, like a lifestyle change, it could be like diet, like I mentioned, it could be all these things that you might need to do, but you have to get under the rocks. If you don't want to get under the rocks, you might not be able to cast off that shell. That way you're not able to figure out what could be causing the problem. Like, because the way that I see it, this is from my perspective, if you have to get under the rocks and you figure out, let's say, like, you figure out that every time you eat, let's say, pizza, you feel more sick. Okay, that's telling you your body's rejecting probably an ingredient from the pizza. It could be gluten or anything like that. So at that point, you can cast off that shell and say, like, okay, I'm not gonna eat pizza. Then I'm gonna keep track of whatever might make me sick as well, like sugar. And I have talked about this. Like, for example, if I eat a lot of sugar, my body starts to ache, and it's hard to get rid of sugar. So I have to cast off that shell. That's one of the shells that I'm working on, like, in regards to sugar, because sugar is so addictive, but it's bad for you. And not a lot of people know that. So I had to get under the rocks to figure that out. I had to literally cast off my shell and say, like, you know what, sugar is bad for me. I'm not gonna eat as much sugar as I have been before, because I wanted to grow through my illness. Because that, for me at least, sugar was making my body have inflammation, which is bad. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to go through this. I'm gonna have to get rid of sugar. I'm gonna have to put on the big boy pants. In this case, that's the way that I see it with myself. I had to put on the big boy pants and cut candy. And let me tell you, it's not easy. Okay, so I know that if you ever decide to get under the rocks, it's gonna be hard, but you can grow through it. Just like the lobster, you're gonna be able to grow another shell, a thicker shell. That way you can actually get to the next level of whatever you need to do, so you can get better. That's the way that I see it, at least from my perspective, with what I had to go through with my PTSD and everything that I have talked to on the podcast as well. So that's pretty much what the story reflects to me. Everybody's gonna have a different perspective. If you want to share your perspective, you can always share it to on the comments. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to send the email, or you can just post your opinion on Facebook, on our page, or on our community. That way we know how this story can relate to you. That's one of the things that I wanted to bring with that story. Some type of a story that we can relate to. And like I mentioned, Spoonies can. I'm pretty sure Spoonies can relate to this story, because since I'm a Spoonie as well, I do feel like that. Like I'm a lobster sometimes. Like I can feel the stress coming in with all the recent events that keep happening, and unfortunately, let's say like the healthcare system is not the greatest, so that's gonna be stressful. So I have to go get under the rocks. I have to cast off my shell, grow a new shell, so I can actually become a better caregiver and a better Spoonie for myself and for my wife. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I think this is a wonderful story. Depending on how you're taking it, you might want to reflect on it. This is something that I had to do. I have been reflecting on it for a really long time. So I want to share that with you, and that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys are enjoying these shows. I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes and all the new content that I keep putting on Facebook. I know that a lot of you guys are liking it, because I see your likes and your hearts. So thank you for that, and don't forget to share, like, subscribe. Also, don't forget to share your story. If you want to share it anonymously, you can send it to the caregiver and spoonie@gmail.com. And also, don't forget to share it, because if other people that are suffering don't know that the community is out there, then they might not get the support that they need. Also, don't forget to share the podcast. And that's all I have for today. And I leave you like always. Always take care of yourself. Have a great day.